There was a time when this house was never silent, not because people were talking all the time, but because life itself made noise. The sound of footsteps in the hallway, a chair moving softly across the floor, the kettle whistling before sunrise. And strangely, you never notice these sounds while they exist. You only notice them after they disappear. Now the house sat quietly in the early morning light. The curtains barely moved. The clock sounded louder than before, and for the first time, silence felt heavy. Every morning she walked to the same window. The sunlight still arrived on time. The birds still crossed the sky. The world outside continued exactly as before. But inside the room, something had changed. She held the curtain gently in her hand, as if opening the window too much might let the loneliness in all at once. Sometimes life changes very quietly. No dramatic ending, no final speech, just empty spaces where familiar moments used to live. In the kitchen, the routine stayed the same. The kettle boiled, steam filled the air. 2 cups were placed on the counter without thinking. Habit is a strange thing. The body remembers even when the heart is still trying to understand. 1 cup was warm in her hands, the other stayed untouched beside it. And somehow, that untouched cup said more than words ever could. Afternoons became the hardest part of the day. Mornings at least had tasks. Evenings had darkness. But afternoons just sat there quietly. The sunlight stretched across the wooden floor. The clock kept ticking, and the room felt like it was listening to her thoughts. That's the strange thing about silence. At first it feels empty, but after a while, it starts showing you things you were too distracted to notice before. One evening, rain began falling without warning. Soft rain, the kind that turns the whole world quieter. She sat beside the window holding a warm cup of tea, watching raindrops slide slowly down the glass. And for the first time in a long while, the silence didn't feel cold, because sometimes healing doesn't arrive loudly. Sometimes it arrives like rain, slow, gentle, almost unnoticed. Later that night, she opened an old wooden box. Inside were folded clothes, old notebooks, small ordinary things that once felt unimportant. And that's when she realized something. Memories do not live in grand moments. They hide inside tiny details, a familiar scent, a handwriting style, the way someone folded a sweater. Life is rarely changed by big events alone. Usually, it is changed by little things repeated with love. Days passed quietly after that, and little by little, the silence changed shape. It no longer felt like something attacking her. It simply became part of the room, part of the mornings, part of her breathing. That's when she understood something important. Silence is not always loneliness. Sometimes silence is life giving you space to finally hear yourself clearly. One morning she opened the window fully for the first time. Fresh air rushed gently into the room. The curtains lifted softly in the wind. The plants near the window moved slightly in the sunlight. Nothing dramatic happened. The world did not suddenly become perfect, but something inside her became lighter. Because healing is rarely a giant moment. Most of the time, it is simply the moment you decide to let life enter the room again. That evening, she made tea again. Only 1 cup this time, and strangely, it no longer felt sad. She sat quietly at the table, holding the warm cup between her hands while sunset light filled the kitchen. The house was still silent, but now the silence felt peaceful, like an old friend instead of an empty space. In the end, the house never truly changed. The same walls remained, the same windows, the same quiet evenings. The only thing that changed was the meaning of the silence. At first she thought silence meant something was missing, but later she understood silence is not always absence. Sometimes silence is acceptance. Sometimes it is rest. Sometimes it is healing. And sometimes silence is where life slowly teaches you how to begin again. Thanks for watching. If you like this story, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. See you in the next one.